Watch this video.
When I grew up in East Texas, I was an only child in the country and I grew up extremely poor. We had a house that the roof leaked and there was black mold on the floor, and I didn't have too many friends over, so there was a certain amount of embarrassment about growing up in poverty. So, a lot of my drive and ambition as a young person was to do well in school, get to a good college, and eventually become a lawyer. I wanted to make money, and most of my drive was focused on ambition. So, I got into a great university, got a lot of scholarships, but I fell apart when I was at college. There was this sense of I finally got there, now I'm an adult, and yet there was something at my core that was missing. I was agnostic. My romantic relationships were not successful, and there was this moment in college where I really just thought, this is hopeless. My life is, maybe I'm not going to be able to be as successful as I wanted to be. Maybe I'm not going to make it, and maybe I'm just a deeply damaged person. And that was a thought that I had. So I attempted suicide. I took a bunch of pills, I fell face forward into my mattress, and I ended up vomiting and waking up 36 hours later. And that was a wake-up call. This was a moment in my life where I thought, you know what? I have to change. And so I started running. I went to see a counselor. I did yoga, and I was kind of on a better track. I was 22 years old, and this was leading up to this big race in Austin. But the night before the race, I had all these dreams. And in one dream, I heard my dad screaming, "Watch out, Trisha." And then I heard my mother saying, "Oh no, I can't believe this happened." And these seemed like dreams that were somehow outside of time. And it seemed very strange. And I thought, I didn't get good sleep. I was really kind of out of it. And I got in my car to run this race. And this is where I had the accident. And this is where the story begins. I'll never forget that. I passed this 7-Eleven, and as soon as I went through the first yellow light, I gunned it. And at that moment, the next light was red. I was already in the intersection. I don't understand how the other car was going as fast as he was going, but he was in a very big vehicle, and we collided almost at a head-on collision. It was a curved intersection, so we hit one another, both going 65 miles an hour. I didn't even have time to put on my brake, and wrecks at that speed, they said immediate death. There were no airbags, there was nothing. I remember the car just crunching up around me, and I fell over to one side. When the police finally showed up, I couldn't move, and there was a nurse who finally came along. 3 cars passed us by, and this nurse stopped, and she was holding my hand. And the man I was in the accident with, he was holding his daughter, and they were bleeding. But she kept telling me that I was far worse and that my injuries were pretty bad. She didn't know if they were neck or back, but I was going to be put on a board and I needed to stay very still. But I didn't have health insurance, so I overheard once I got to the ER the nurses talking, and one surgeon let my case go. And the nurses were talking about this, that he wasn't going to come in because he may not get paid. So I really started to freak out. The nurses kept coming by and squeezing my foot, and I just didn't feel anything. And so 17 hours with no painkiller, nothing to numb the pain because I had internal injuries. And the woman who ended up operating on me had been on duty for 40 hours. And so when she took my case, she was very tired herself, but she decided to operate anyway. And it was going to be a long surgery. They were going to have to pick a lot of bone fragments from my spine. So I was wheeled in for surgery. And then I don't know how long into the surgery, but probably long enough for them to open up my back and my hip.